Yo, 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 you know what it is. I just wanted to jump in here and get our market outlook going for the week. Since today is the 4th, there's not really much going on. So I figured I'd just do the video today. So let's hop into it. Not really much to say, but I guess before we start officially, let me just say that this isn't financial advice. I'm just some random guy on YouTube looking at charts, giving my opinion. So let that be clear, and then let's jump in it. So as always, let's start off with SPY. Um, and if we think back to last week, which was this bar right here, we had a lot of selling at the beginning of the week, and then we kind of pulled back midway, which I don't think much was going on like on the weekly chart that we can read, because at that point we had already had a break and then a move to a new low. So if anything, we're really just kind of expecting price to come test up here and then the EMA. But I think on the daily chart we had more interesting data points. Looking on this daily chart, if y'all remember back to last week's video, we were kind of waiting for some kind of sell-off, which we got. I think this was Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Yeah. So on Tuesday, we did get that push lower, that first break of structure. And on Friday, we got our first attempt to try to test these highs. So I don't know if that means we're actually going to go test those highs. There's still a strong possibility that we get like two failed attempts and trend lower. But at least for the time being, I'm looking at the 393.21 level, and I'm ideally expecting price to try and test that level. So I mean, and in theory, there's a trade here. I don't know if I love it. Um, like there should be a trade right there. You can't really go for, I mean, you can go for 2 to 1, no problem. But by going for 2 to 1, your target is past the extreme test. So, it might try to push higher, get to this level and start selling off, or break the high but not close above that high, start selling off. Um, so just be sure to kind of cover your profit along the way, if it can even push that high. For me, I think I don't really like. We didn't close super far beyond that EMA, but I do think this trend is valid. So it doesn't work every time, and that's the main thing. We always have to sort of keep in mind is that we just got to try to take as many good trades as possible, because they all won't work. And just because you take an L on one trade, you just keep trading the strategy and you'll end up being net positive. But I do see a trade here off this low. Prices went lower once, prices went lower twice. So you could expect, I think, a more reasonable target. I just don't think it's necessarily worth your time is going for the 1 to 1. I feel like that 1 to 1 target is a lot more reasonable. But when you really just want to crush it, I just set that 2 to 1 and then try to cover your profit along the way. So I kind of see this trade. Let's see how this performs. Um, the major things is just trading into that EMA. We could touch that EMA in reverse. Um, it's not my favorite kind of trade coming from the low side, but all things equal, I think this is a position. Now, okay, well, it is a counter trend position, so it's just kind of a tricky market because I think the better trades are shorts. The better trades are shorts, which would mean we would want to see prices go up, fail. That's a short. Try to do it again, fail. That's an even better short. That's probably going to be the best trade, the failed second entry off the high side. Off this low side, your counter trend trading, you can see every channel we have is a down channel. So this trade might get a lot of resistance, but it's there. So let's pay attention to this during the week and just see how it does. If we look at the ES, which is the same thing as SPY, we just get a little bit more data. And actually, the ES traded briefly today, so we can kind of look at how that did. You know, the interesting thing is that the ES kind of has a different story, in my opinion, because on the ES, we have the zone right there, and then a bear leg. Here's the first counter trend close. That's the first counter trend close. Pullback. That's a first entry short. And then probably a little push higher, a reversal type bar. That would be the second entry short. So on the ES, my opinion is we'll probably come and test 3,641 and a quarter. That's really where, you know, my expectation would be. So I don't know how to consolidate those two ideas because I'm kind of getting slightly different things and slightly different expectations. So but the other thing to note on the ES is we have a big bullish bar, and there's a couple of them along the way. But we have this big bullish bar, a bar that opens and closes inside of this bar, then this bar opens and closes inside of that one, along with this one and this one and this one. No, not this one, just this one. So in theory, there's some kind of potential range. So it'll be interesting to see if we get a bounce here or a breakout here. It'd be very interesting to me to see. But even for this long trade on the ES, I don't see a actual setup on the ES. It's just a first entry. I guess it's a higher low, but it's an engulfing bar, higher low under the EMA. I don't generally trust those. So a little tricky on SPY in the ES. I like the ES for day trading. I like to use SPY for more of the swing trades. So that's kind of the position I see on the spiders. On the Qs, I'd imagine it's pretty similar. See, on the Qs, you don't get a trigger yet. On the Qs, we saw that trend, a breakout side, but we haven't triggered anything. So you would still expect this high test on the Qs, but it's just not, the trade hasn't set up yet. So we'll know a little bit more tomorrow. Yeah, we'll know a little bit more tomorrow. Let's move on to Bitcoin. So keeping it on the daily chart, we kind of got what we were looking for. I just want to clear it up a little bit. I remember we were talking about, we were like on this bar, we had the second entry short. Last week we were talking about this second entry short off the low, first attempt, second attempt, boom. And this is an interesting position because we're expecting the test of 17,619.74. But if you would have taken that trade, I'm pretty sure you get a 2-to-1. Close to a 2-to-1. Yeah. You can get 2.25 to 1. So, you know, your target would have been filled. And it's kind of interesting how prices bounce so hard after that target gets filled. Or it didn't bounce, prices rejected, and then kind of just got stuck in a little smaller zone. But we're still kind of looking for this lower test. But we're clearly in a range. So, you know, it could kind of bounce, oscillate. But at least for now, we're still looking for this low side test. Because even if we come back and bounce over here, really what we need to watch out for is if we close above that EMA. If we close above that EMA and then break out, then we might consider what that might mean for the bull side. But for now, I'm just kind of looking at this as we're just trying to test these lows, and we're finding support here at 18,898. Just finding some support. Really big week for Bitcoin. You know, if Bitcoin breaks this low, I mean, gosh, who knows what will happen. But if Bitcoin bounces, it'll still have a lot to prove. It'll still have to get through this EMA. It'll still have to break this channel. But at least I think we might have some sort of range where we'll have an equilibrium of prices. It's really all I see. I mean, we can go out to the weekly. There's not going to be much more going on the weekly chart. Yeah, on that weekly chart, we're still expecting that first counter trend close. This entire bear leg, we haven't had one counter trend close. So that's what I'm saying. Like, even if we get that bounce, there's still a little bit to prove for Bitcoin because we're going to need that counter trend close. It's going to try to retest the lows, and it's going to have to either test that low and bounce or try to test that low twice and fail before we really get that push. In a sort of probabilistic way, you know, it can always just bounce. I'm not saying that it has to do these things, but within the confines of this strategy, that's what we'll be looking for before we really are convinced that the bulls are back in control. We're going to move on to gold. So gold, that one trade from a few weeks ago got stopped. We were talking about how to manage the risk once we saw these dojis. Those, you know, once we saw these dojis, we were talking about how maybe something is up. But I want to, after we look at this weekly chart, jump onto the daily chart and show y'all something. You know, you probably go for the 2-to-1, gets you somewhere up in here. So we talked about how this trade isn't as powerful, right? Because we had that congestion zone, a breakout, the first counter trend close. So boom, once we get this counter trend close, we're expecting prices to come test 1785, right? So at that point right there, that kind of negates the trade. And then once we sat sideways, I'm down to just exit or tighten your stop. You would have gotten stopped out on any of these bars. That's fine. But another thing to note is that, because last week I was thinking, okay, well, how do we incorporate this bull leg, right? Because on this bull leg, we get a bull leg, first counter trend close, first attempt to go higher, and then second attempt to go higher. But literally on this bar right here, once that bar closes below this bar, that's a failed second entry off this high, first time, second time. And then you get the break here, but you get the close here. So right there, you're thinking, okay, price is at least this long trade ain't it. You're gonna have to exit and try to find a re-entry. So that's how you can kind of manage the risk on that trade a little better. And then if you look at the daily chart, so much going on, but if you look at that daily chart, we had a congestion zone, the breakout, right? And then once we pulled back, we're expecting the test of this level, 1805. But if you look on this overall price action, this bar right here goes far enough to stop out this weekly trade and then gets rejected hard. We'll have to see what this means, but to me, that is all indications that you might get that re-entry. Because on the smaller scale, you get a test, breakout, you get a leg, breakout, move to a new low. On the larger weekly scale, you get the leg, breakout, move to a new low. So once we start closing back above this EMA, that might be a solid re-entry. But there's really no rush on that. I just wanted to let y'all know that, of course, I can't win every trade. I don't win every trade. I'm not trying to make it seem like every trade we take are going to be winners. But what I can do is that generally we can find ways to make our losers pretty small. And just by nature, when we do win, we're going to have some pretty massive wins. So there are a couple ways to exit this trade and a couple ideas that if you just kind of follow the ideas, I think the price action the entire time was trying to tell us that it's really not ready to go long. It's really not ready. And there are a couple ways you could have read that, whether it's you hung tight through all of this congestion, you saw the breakout, the pullback, okay, boom, you already know we're coming here. And at that point, if we're coming down here, what's the difference between coming here and then coming down to this low? You might as well try to find that exit. And then again, on the larger time frame, we also had that same sort of directional bias. So in terms of kind of looking forward for gold, the break, move to a new low. So let's see if we get a bull close that doesn't close above the EMA, just a bull close underneath the EMA, and it turns down, then we might be in an all-in short market and just every short trade you take. But if we get that bull close that closes above the EMA, I could see that potentially coming to test back into this range, and we'll see how far it can go from there. Not so much. I mean, there was kind of a lot that went on last week, but a lot of the moves happened last week, so now we're just waiting for prices to sort of reset so we can find the next wave of moves. So I think the only trade I see is this trade, and my conviction level on this trade is like 40%. I in general don't like this trade because we're moving lower. Everything's in the downtrend. I don't really want to take longs. So this is one of those trades where, like, if I was trading this, I'd probably mark this trade as, hey guys, there is a trade here, but I don't think I would take this trade because it's just not the type of setup that I want. But I like to mark every system trade. Go ahead and mark every system trade so you know, okay, when does it work? When does it not work? And depending on how this trade performs, we'll know, okay, well, taking this trade in the counter trend, as long as we have the momentum, is okay. Or we'll know, hey, even though you see the trade, follow the overall market and just wait for this sequence to play out, and then take the with trend trade after the sequence plays out, because it's going to be one of like 3 scenarios, right? I guess 4. I mean, there's a couple, right? But mainly the ones I'm looking for, price is either just going to start trending lower and go past this origin point. We're back on SPY, by the way. Go past, and we're talking about the overall market at this point. Price is going to start trending lower, off the rip tomorrow, whenever. Just starts trending lower. It breaks this lower point, and then now this whole sequence is invalid, and we're going to look for the lower sequence. That's one scenario. The next scenario is price is going to test these highs, find some kind of resistance around this trend line, and then start to trend lower again. That's the second scenario. And then the third scenario is price is going to attempt to test this high. It'll be unable to break that high and then start to trend lower. That's the third scenario. So that's really all we're looking for right now. So we'll see. It'll kind of be an interesting week. I think that on the SPYs, it's kind of looking like we're in for a bullish week. And on Bitcoin, you would assume that, no, I don't think you can really predict it or assume it. But I'm definitely looking for that bullish close on Bitcoin. It's been how many weeks? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Like 14 or 15 weeks where we haven't even had a bullish close. So it's coming. That bullish close is coming on Bitcoin, but we'll just have to see if we get, like, see how this one, we got that bullish close and then we still try to go lower. And even when we pushed higher, it really was just a setup to go even lower. So, kind of looking at this pattern over here, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can expect that close and then some sort of attempt lower, and then possibly even further down. So let's see how we respond when we get to this EMA. And there's a couple ways. It could trend to this EMA, or we could just chop sideways to that EMA. So we'll see kind of which version of a market we get in Bitcoin. So that's all I got today. We did the bar by bar on Friday. That's where you get a lot of the more specific technical ideas. In these videos, we're just looking to kind of look at the overall market and see if we can get a feel for the week. And that'll help inform, especially for me, like doing this helps me with my day trades, because now I kind of have, like tomorrow, if we start like with a bullish day, I'll kind of have a target of like, okay, well, over the next couple of days, we might come and test this target. And that'll just help me with my day trades. So that's all we got for today. It's your boy signing out. I'll catch y'all next week for another outlook. See y'all.